It's tragic when time runs out and the clock stops and you haven't said everything you've ever wanted to say in life. I work within the funeral industry, and if there's one thing I know, it is that life is like me at 5'5.5", it's short. And that in order to leave a legacy, you've got to live a legacy. And that would be my message to the business community this evening. I have written over 2,000 funeral speeches, and I would conclude that how we'll be remembered, our legacy is the sum total of how other people will value you and measure you to be that person you had intended to be and the person they expected you to be. So time is short. This speech is only 7 minutes, but I would like to give you one of them and ask yourself this question. Even from a business or a personal perspective, how would you like to be remembered? What is your legacy going to be? I would like you for 1 minute to have a conversation with yourself. Hey Neil, how you doing? You're looking well. You're almost 100 years old. What's your legacy going to be? What's your legacy going to be?
What will my legacy be?
Yeah.
How are people going to remember me?
Exactly.
I'll say this about Neil Dorward.
Okay.
A philosopher.
All right.
A poet. A talented footballer. A gigolo.
Thank you.
A friend of Barack Obama. A benefactor who gave tens of thousands of pounds to charity. They all lived near him and were his friends on Facebook.
That's very, very interesting, Neil, with your friends on Facebook. You're very, very funny. But listen, there's a serious message there. You know, whether it's a business or as individuals, we're going to leave a legacy. This message has been around to the business community for years. Dr. Stephen Covey said we're called to live, to learn, to love, to leave a legacy. The only thing is, I don't agree with Dr. Covey. We're not going to just leave a legacy, we're called to live a legacy. But what I do like about Dr. Covey's mantra is that he encompasses the 4 intelligences of life. We're called to live, that's physical intelligence. We're called to learn, that's IQ. We're called to love, empathy, that's emotional intelligence. But we are ultimately called to the greatest intelligence of life, which is spiritual intelligence. And from a business perspective, that's giving back, that's benevolence. It's knowing who you are, where you're meant to be in life. Please, however, can I say, do not equate spiritual intelligence with formal religion. I actually went to a school reunion last year, and I met a friend of mine who's since become religious. He's become a Buddhist. And we went out for lunch, McDonald's, he paid. He took £20 out of his back pocket, and he gave it to the girl to pay. And he was waiting quite a while, you know, for his change. And he went up to the little girl and he said, "Where's my change?" And she smiled at him and she said, "Change, my son, comes from within." And I think the business community has always known that. Some changes do come from within. Some can be taught. You can teach the first 2. Physical IQ can be taught. But emotional and spiritual intelligence cannot be taught. They can only be desired. And that would be the challenge today. To almost find for businesses motivational triggers to encourage us to desire this. I suppose physically you could just go to the gym. Intellectually, do some Nintendo brain training. What about emotional intelligence? How could you encourage people to do that? Watch a great movie. Have you seen Good Will Hunting? Great movie. Young Will has got very, very high IQ but low emotional intelligence. And Robin Williams has high IQ, high emotional intelligence. They have this conversation. And Robin Williams says to him, he says, "If I was to ask you about the history of art, you'd give me the skinny of every book that's ever been written. Michelangelo, bet you know a lot about him. Life works, political aspirations, sexual orientation, relationship with the popes, the whole works. But he said, I bet you can't tell me what it smells like in the Sistine Chapel." He couldn't do it. It's the same with spiritual intelligence. What motivational trigger would you want for that? Again, I'm going to recommend another film. The Wizard of Oz. What did Dorothy say? There's no place like. She knew, she was a teenager. She knew where she was meant to be in life. She was only a young girl, but she had high spiritual intelligence. And there's a great challenge for businesses there, for people not just to arrive intellectually and physically, but the whole intelligences of life to be present. The Sunday Times Top 100 Best Companies to Work For has demonstrated the reason why these top companies outperform their counterparts in the FTSE 100 is because they attract the whole person. And these top companies consistently produce 4 times the profit. Profit's good, money's good, but in 2,000 funerals, I've never once heard somebody say to me, I wish I'd spent more time in the office. So the challenge for business is not just to bring your physical presence, your IQ, but your emotional and your spiritual intelligence. The challenge individually is to be that example. Where people will look up to you. I'm only 5'5.5". The person that looks up to me is my daughter. Thank you for listening.